So, I'm 100% convinced that the world economy is headed into a recession based on the data that I've seen. There's too much money in the economy at the moment, which is the primary cause for inflation. The sanctions on Russia prevent them from exporting several essential commodities to the rest of the world. Now, this, along with Ukraine halting exports to save their commodities for their own people, this is exacerbating the price increases in food around the world. Since Russia and Ukraine are responsible for a lot of the world's wheat, developing countries are going to starve as some of them solely rely on Ukraine for wheat. Now, wheat is also used to feed animals, so the input cost for producing animals goes up. The end costs of those animals also go up. The prices of chips are also going up. I mean, yeah, those chips are going up, but I meant computer chips. So Ukraine exports a lot of the world's neon, and that is an inert gas. So basically, it doesn't have any chemical reactions. And these are used in the production of the chips that are used in laptops, phones, cars, and many other products. Now, I could go on, but I believe you get the point. I have my reasons to believe a recession is imminent. I'll post several other posts from my Instagram page on screen now to show more reasons for my believing that a recession is coming. Feel free to check them out if you want. I do more of my stocks and finance related stuff on Instagram since I don't have the time to run like a finance related channel, especially since the US markets open during my bedtime. So anything finance related that I put out would be outdated by the time the video's done anyway. I may do videos on the larger scale economic conditions such as air cap, which aren't breaking news finance stuff, but I wouldn't do videos on financial news such as Elon Musk's Twitter purchase, as that situation just has changed so much since it started. But anyway, I digress. So, now what? All doom and gloom now that I know a recession is coming? Well, yes, but we can prepare the best we can. So here's what I'm doing to prepare myself. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I sing the praises of being an employee. Obviously, being your own boss, working your own hours, doing what you love, that's the dream. I just fear that many will quit their jobs in pursuit of this dream, but they'll fall short and then they'll have nothing to fall back on. Now, I suggest building your dream on the side of a job. That way you've still got the stability of being an employee to fall back on. You can make an argument that not all jobs are stable. And I mean, look at the economy in the US at the moment. They say unemployment figures are low, but recent job cuts I've seen indicate this trend is changing and it's changing fast. I've heard Twitter, Amazon, and Facebook are freezing hiring, and soon it'll be layoffs after that. Carvana just cut like 2,500 staff, some of them over Zoom, I think. Walmart stated that overstaffing was one of the main factors for why they missed their recent earnings targets. So yes, a job may not be the most stable thing in the world, but it's more stable than a business, right? If your customers are part of these job losses, then they're going to cut back on spending on your business. So unless your business is selling groceries or fuel, and even in that case, the cost of your stock is way up, so you'd hope your customers stay with you instead of going to other competitors, then ultimately, you'd lose customers because of the other job losses anyway. So ultimately, a job is more stable than a business, but I digress. So as for jobs, I have two of them. One is basically doing the accounts for a retail/hardware store. It's a very basic overview, but that's basically the gist of it. And the other is like a team member or a worker at a supermarket. Now, these jobs are both relatively stable. The hardware store does pretty decent sales, and a lot of our customers are from, more stable businesses, if that makes sense. And the supermarket is obviously probably the most stable job in the country besides being a nurse or a teacher. So I'm going to hold on to these for dear life. Just a quick side tangent. I was at a party with some of my university friends the other night, like my friends from university. I'm not at university anymore. And three of them make more from their primary jobs than I do with both of my jobs combined. So that's a little bit disheartening, but I took a step back and then I realized, well, they started their careers a lot earlier than I did. So we may be the same age, but I'm younger in my career age. So don't compare yourself to others. You're at a different stage in your own journey. Now, the reason I bring that up is instead of switching jobs in this tough economy, it's more than likely a better and safer bet to stay put until we have more favorable economic conditions. Unemployment here in Australia is at the lowest it's been in decades, but the US economy is often a leading indicator of what happens here in Australia, so it's only a matter of time before unemployment starts to increase. The reason you don't switch jobs during a recessionary environment is because you'll be on what's called probation. When you start employment, you have a certain time frame. It's usually 6 months. I've seen some places it's 3 months, where you're essentially on a trial. Now, during this trial period, your employer can legally fire you for no reason, and you can't do a thing about it. I've lost 2 jobs in the past before my probation ended. Now, if I lost these jobs after my 6-month probation period ended, I could argue unfair dismissal in court, but since I was let go before the 6 months, I can't do anything about it. Now, those stories are for another day, but note that your employment is more secure if you're at an organization for longer than 6 months. Having a second job is also a good idea as it diversifies your employment. If for whatever reason one job fails, you've got another to fall back on. Now, the less glamorous jobs at places like fast food and supermarkets are nice and stable, and they're a nice set of extra income. Fast food is obviously not an essential like groceries, but you'd be surprised how many people still buy fast food a lot during tough financial times, or at the very least they do here in the state I'm in Australia. I'd imagine it's the same in the States, but if you're in Europe, perhaps jobs at bars would be better. I mean, they're also a good idea here in Australia and the United States and the UK, I imagine. But from what I understand, in Europe, there aren't a lot of fast food outlets. When I was in Denmark, there was one total Macca's that I counted that whole time I was there. And that was in the Copenhagen train station, which is obviously like a central hub filled with international travelers. So Macca's jobs are probably hard to come by over there if there isn't that many restaurants. I'm also of the understanding that Europeans prefer the culture of like restaurant meals as opposed to fast food anyway. So again, another good job, second job, third job opportunity would be in those restaurants. So wrapping up this section, I'm preparing for the recession by keeping both of my jobs and not switching them, which puts me in a vulnerable position to be terminated, if I switched jobs, and then I'd be on probation. If I didn't have my second job, I'd look at getting one before the recession formally hits. Now, hopefully you'll make yourself irreplaceable to the business you work at before the recession hits, so you're a lot harder to get rid of. Now, these jobs will help hold you over during the recession while you continue your studies, continue your progression at your main job, continue your business, whatever your goals and endeavor may be. Diet, food, expenses. So on one hand, you can hold your income, maybe even grow it. Maybe you have the balls to switch jobs during a recessionary environment. I don't, but just be careful. Now, on the other hand, you can cut your expenses. So there's obviously increasing, maintaining income, and then there's cutting your expenses. Now, for me personally, I don't have many unnecessary expenditures. So for me, it's just more so switching up my diet to make it a bit cheaper. Now, my diet is obviously applicable here to me in Australia. So the prices and products may be different for wherever you are. But here is my sort of current diet slash grocery list. So the quantity is like how much of that I'll buy per week. So that by the way, Woolworths is like the name of one of the main supermarkets here in Australia and the one that I work at. So quantity is like how often I would buy that product per week. So I tend to go through three bottles of this 3 litre milk in a week. Now, sometimes it's 4 if I start drinking more milk, but lately I haven't because I've been away on like exam leave, like away from gym. So why would you have all that extra calories if you're not working out? Like, it doesn't make sense. So I haven't had that for a while, and then recently I just got sick. And then I've also, on top of that, I've been trying to get back into like gym, like building up the volume again, so I don't have the need for the extra calories. So when that ramps back up again, that'll probably be another $3.90 a week. Red meat, so this is usually kangaroo or lean beef mince. I opt for kangaroo when I can find it, but they've been a bit short on that lately, so I just go for lean beef mince. And then I'll get like 2 packets of those a week. The kangaroo packets, I'll need 4, but they're like $8 each instead of 16, so it's like pretty much the same price anyway. Sweet potato, that's like $4.50 for like a kilo, and I buy like these little kilo packets, so I get 2 of them. That lasts me a bit more than a week, but I'm not going to do like 1.6 or like 0.8 sort of quantities here, this is just a rough outline. And also this budget doesn't even, well, this grocery list doesn't even include like creams for my face, hair gel, stuff like that. So this is strictly just food, because I'm not going to cut back on things like grooming yourself just to save a few bucks in a recession. Like, don't get grotty. Kiwi, that's like $8.90 a kilo at the moment. Prices really fluctuate depending on the season, but I get about a kilo of them a week. So there's $8.90. Spinach, there's 2 packets, and each packet, like I go through 2 packets a week, and each packet is about $5, so there's $10 of spinach. Tuna, now I eat like 1 can of tuna a day, and so that's why there's 7, and that's only $9.10. Like it's so cheap, like $1.30 for these like cans. I don't know how big they are, but they're like 26 grams of protein once you've like factor in how much like tuna there is. Like that's a pretty sweet deal. Now that protein powder row is blank just because I buy them from Costco, and I tend to go like once or twice a year. Well, actually, I don't buy them. My parents buy them. Like, I could afford them myself, but if we all go to Costco as a family, we're all gonna get a bulk batch of stuff. So that's where I get my protein powder from, and then it usually lasts me until my next Costco trip anyway. So that's why that's blank. Otherwise, it's usually about 2 or 3 times a year. It's about like $150 for like a packet. It really depends what brand you get, how much you use and all that. So, but it's not really on my shopping list because I don't get my protein powder from Woolies. If I don't get it from Costco, I'll get it from like Deramarts or something. Little packets of seaweed, I go through about 1 of them a week. They're about $6. Muffins, these are like Woolworths brand muffins. So they're like $3.50 for 4 of them, and I go through about 2 a week. It's obviously it's not the healthiest option, but it's extra calories, and my body tends to assimilate it pretty well. So that makes it worth it for me. Plus, if I don't have these muffins, my diet tends to be in a deficit anyway. So these muffins are like my if it fits your macros calorie surplus type of food. So I could obviously like make it healthier and have rice or something, but that requires me to cook even more than I already am. So yeah, like there's a healthier option, but this is just like a lot more enjoyable for me. And as you can see, it's a pretty clean diet, all things considered anyway. So those 2 bottom food items, dark chocolate and eggs, they're highlighted because they're like kind of random. So I live on like this, it's not a farm, but like it's like kind of a farm. That doesn't make sense. I live with my parents on a 20-acre property, so we've got room for chickens. Now, chickens don't tend to lay much in winter, so it's winter here in Australia. Well, it's autumn, but it may as well be winter. It's been really cold lately. And chickens don't tend to lay that much when it's really cold. So that way, when they don't lay, I have to go and buy eggs. But if the chickens are laying, then I go buy eggs. And I always buy free range instead of like caged eggs, because free range eggs are just higher quality because the chickens have actually had sunlight. Now, some people think that free range chickens have like grass and shit, but I used to work at a free range chicken farm when I was like 15, and it's all bare because obviously once they've set up the chook sheds, the chickens will eat all the grass around it. And then they're not going to move the shed now, are they? They've already like planted it on the ground. And then new grass isn't going to grow because the chickens are just going to eat it before it grows again. So for the most part, they don't really get too much like extra food other than just seed. But at the very least, they get sunlight. So that's why I go for free range eggs, which is why that egg price is a little bit more expensive. And plus the bird flu in the US has obviously culled a lot of chickens. So the supply of eggs has gone down a fair bit. Like, if you can, get free range eggs from like someone you know who's got like pet chickens who they feed like scrap veggies to. There is a massive difference between the egg yolk quality on the chicken eggs from my home compared to the supermarket. So that's just a little tidbit to keep in mind. But all that aside, I don't buy eggs if the chickens are laying. Now, as for the dark chocolate, the brand I buy it from will go on special quite a lot. So when it goes on special, I tend to bulk buy it. So it's not really in my weekly grocery list. It's kind of like just, it's on special, let's bulk buy it. So that's why that's also in orange. But if they're not on special, then I just have to sort of buy it each week as I go, and it tends to last me a little bit under a week, but I can go a couple of days without it. Now, I don't have dark chocolate for like flavor reasons. I have it more so for like nutritional reasons. I believe I elaborate on it in this video here. Now, one thing I did forget to include in this little list is my Monster energy drinks. So I don't like coffee, but I do need caffeine some days because obviously people just say, well, just sleep more. Well, easier said than done. And no matter how much sleep you get, you're always tired anyway. So I do need some caffeine here and there because obviously, have you tried working an office job when you're tired? Like, you fall asleep at your desk. So I need caffeine. So the only caffeine I'll have is the white Monsters because they are 0 calories and they taste like lemonade, and I can tolerate lemonade. But I'll only sip as much as I need. Like, I don't go through a can a day or anything. I go through maybe 2 cans a week in total. But that's another thing, like with the dark chocolate, I'll like bulk buy it when it's on special. Like, it's not really in my weekly routine. So I guess you can tack on another $13. No. Well, it's like $13.60 for a pack of 4, but that lasts me like 2 weeks, so what? Tack on another $6.80 on top of that if you want to include the Monster energy drinks. So my normal weekly bill is around $93.70. That's not including any bulk buys or like creams or hair gel or any of that stuff. But if the chickens aren't laying and I've run out of dark chocolate, then it's about $120, a bit under. Now, I could have this grocery bill at $0 by eating whatever my family eats, but gym is non-negotiable for me, so I need my standard health foods. I could cut back by cancelling my gym membership and working out from my home gym, but the gym has like more equipment and I like the atmosphere, so the $18 something that I pay a week is well worth it. Now, some cheaper methods here. You could sub out the red meat for chicken. Chicken is a little bit cheaper, but red meat has numerous benefits over chicken since red meat contains vitamins and minerals like zinc, magnesium, potassium, etc. that chicken simply doesn't have. There are other gym related benefits, but for the sake of this video, subbing out red meat is an option, but as a gym rat, the trade-off just isn't worth it for me. Now, this isn't a bad weekly grocery bill, all things considered, especially because I get a slight discount of 5% for being an employee there. You know, obviously not much, but better than nothing. The best option is the tuna, 26 grams of protein for $1.30. I'm surprised this isn't more expensive, but I have no doubt in my mind that it'll go up soon. So recently, the Woolworths CEO had this to say. I made an Instagram post about it. Now, basically, he's saying consumers in Australia aren't panicking about a recession yet, but Woolworths will need to raise their prices once inflation inevitably becomes more of a problem. So, that's food. Now, I've been spending a lot of money on my side hustles and my appearance lately too. So, my appearance, this includes dental work, laser hair removal, and Botox. Now, these are things I shouldn't really leave too late. So, dental will just get more expensive otherwise, like there'll just be more decaying in my back teeth, and that'll just get more expensive, and obviously I don't want to end up with no teeth. Laser hair removal, I'm already really deep into the treatment. I think I've had like 11 sessions and the effects are really starting to show. So, it'd be foolish to stop now. So just really quick, the way laser works is you need like a heap of sessions in a row for it to sort of become permanent, and then you just like you really back off. Like you start to go once every 6 months instead of once every 1 month to maintain the results. So that's why I need to pay more now, because I need more frequent doses, but obviously that'll taper off as I go. Now, as for Botox, if I leave it too late, it'll be harder to reverse any creases in my appearance. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I'd rather sacrifice a few thousand early on in my life to maintain youthful looks, rather than letting age defeat me in exchange for a few extra $1,000 that I would eventually earn back anyway. So, also just real quick, Botox, I've got really strong like forehead muscles, which is causing my like forehead to crease. So I just get that Botoxed out, and yeah, super smooth skin up there. So again, this is just another example of me. If you're in a situation where you're spending money on like, well, it's not really cosmetics, I just call it aesthetics. If you're spending money on aesthetics, you can cut that back. Obviously, it's not essential for most people the way food is. But yeah, this is an option you can cut back. And one thing I do is I cut my own hair. It saves me about 30-ish bucks every 6 to 8 weeks. I think hairdressers charge around 30 to 60 bucks for cutting my hair. 30 bucks to cut my hair, since my hair grows pretty fast. Now, you may think it's odd that I save money on cheap haircuts, but I spend money on expensive aesthetics. But haircuts are something that you need to regularly maintain, and it's not going to leave potential permanent impacts if you let it go, the same way that dental and Botox will if you leave it too long. Like dental work, the dental work is going to fill in some holes and stuff in my teeth that aren't going to need to be touched for years. So laser will also only need one session every 6 months or so, once it's like the effects are permanent and maintained, once my initial batch sessions are done. Now, although Botox does still require maintenance for every 4 months or so, which is really not that much, and it's also not super cheap, I'd rather not leave that too long and end up with permanent creases anyway. So, you know, this is just my opinion, to each their own. Now, another obvious tip to like prepare for a recession is to cut back on like social events, like on expensive social events. Just have a cheap picnic with your friends or go watch a movie at your friend's place. There's no need for some fancy day out in Melbourne or anything of that sort. Now, you can also cut down on subscriptions like Netflix, but again, this one's obvious. Like, if it's not super essential and you can live without it, you can consider culling it to save some money for the upcoming recession. Now, like, those last two tips are like kind of like straightforward and obvious, so I'm not going to give any more because I'm sure everyone knows that and you can like figure it out yourself. Like, I don't know your situation. Maybe you got like an expensive phone plan that you can downgrade or something, but again, I don't know your situation. Now, here are some things that I can't really do much about this upcoming recession, or they're not really gonna like there's not much I can do about them. Income from stocks. The worst is not over. The Fed hasn't even started QT yet. So I said in the first section that I'm keeping my jobs in order to make money / save money / retain money throughout this. I also mentioned how a business probably isn't the safest source of income in a recession either, but I failed to mention stocks, and there's a reason for this. The Fed, which is like the bank of the banks, and it's like the central bank in the United States, which is the world powerhouse economy, so they're kind of important to pay attention to. So the Fed hasn't even started QT yet, which is quantitative tightening, which is basically taking money away from the economy. They're starting this in June. They haven't started it yet, they're starting it in June. Now, they've only barely raised interest rates so far, and look at how the stock market has reacted. Note that a lot of these declines were due to companies giving out bleak forecasts in their earnings reports. So basically what this means in English is the companies said in a meeting that they think they won't make as much money for the next few months and likely the rest of the year. So stock prices fell, since stock prices are basically what investors think the company should be valued at. If the company is going to do worse, then of course they should be valued worse, hence the stock price falls. So, if all this has happened before the Fed has taken any money out of the system, imagine what happens once they actually do take money out of the system. Note that at the rate they plan on decreasing their balance sheet, it'll take them about 9 years to deplete the entire balance sheet, and I don't think they'll come close to depleting their balance sheet. But the point is, it's really slow, so it's not like they're taking away half the money supply in this year or anything like that. Now, the reason I bring these up is because look at how much money was lost from the stock market in the past few months, and the Fed has barely done anything. Yeah, I know the markets price in future events they know will happen, but when the events actually happen, they tend to sell off even more. Just look at each time the Fed mentioned how they were going to increase interest rates, and then when they actually did, stock prices fell again. So, once the Fed increases their rates more and actually starts tapering their balance sheet, the stock market is going to drop even worse. So, in plain English, the bank of the banks is going to take away money from the banks that we use, and they're going to make it more expensive to pay back loans. Now, since a lot of companies use loans to grow, they'll stop taking out so many loans since they need to pay more for them. If they're not taking out as many loans, they don't grow as fast. If they don't grow, they don't hire people. Now, that means less jobs overall, but it also means the stock price doesn't go up if the company doesn't grow. A counter argument here is a stock like GameStop. This drastically grew because a lot of people put money in the stock at the same time. Now, obviously this works with any stock, but during a recession when people don't have a lot of money, they aren't going to do something that's dumb and just ape into a certain stock they saw on Reddit. Those days are over. If you want my suggestion, look at agricultural and energy stocks. With Russia sanctioned and Ukraine not exporting a lot, agriculture in the United States is going to become a lot more valuable. Now, we haven't seen the worst yet, since farming began recently, so once all the crop has been produced, we will see the further impacts of the sanctions then, I believe, as farmers had to resort to using certain manure for soil since the cost of chemicals they usually use on the soil was ridiculously expensive since they couldn't get it from Russia anymore. I believe that's what happened. There's likely more to that, but that's the gist of it. Like the product that the farmers are trying to create just won't be as good, and there's a chance that the crop doesn't even like survive either. So look into agriculture stocks. They may not pay off for a while, but they're a lot more likely to pay off and increase than most other stocks. Energy is also good since oil is hard to come by and the Russia-Ukraine situation has exacerbated the issue. Now, note that oil was already becoming a problem before the conflict, but it's just even worse now. Not financial advice, obviously. Like every fucking financial advisor on YouTube says. But it's just like a general suggestion. Do your own homework. But that's just what I've seen is going to pay off in the coming months. So yeah, again, do your own research on it. Now, I didn't mention crypto because fuck crypto. I mean, I have it, but like seriously, crypto is considered a much riskier asset than tech stocks, and tech stocks are selling off really bad. So yeah, there's not a lot of money to be made in crypto markets at the moment, so that's why I didn't mention it. And the whole Terra Luna thing has really just shot crypto confidence too. So yeah, don't expect to make a lot of money from crypto this year. Now, in terms of housing, from what I've seen, house prices are on the decline. They definitely are on the decline in the United States. Here in Australia, they're starting to flatten out in the larger capital cities like Sydney and Melbourne. I think maybe Tasmania, I don't know, but they probably won't drop for a fair while yet. I'm likely going to have to hold off on building my house so that the prices can drop to a more reasonable level. Like, you know, the prices of all the materials and the labor, like the building companies aren't going to like overcharge or anything like that. Now, as for study, this doesn't make much of an impact, so I'm still going to be doing my study since work is funding it anyway. And even if I failed my previous exam, the one that I've been stressing about for a while, I'll just do this subject alongside my new subject. So instead of doing one subject per like this upcoming semester, I'll be doing two, the one that I just failed and the new one. Now, the one that I just failed, I still have like all the exam notes and everything anyway, so all I'll need is like an hour, maybe 2 hours a week. Even 2 hours a week sounds like a lot of work. Maybe an hour a week. An hour a week of just maintaining what I've learned from that anyway. If I fail, the exam results come out in 2 weeks. I don't really know how the exam went. It was kind of 50-50 to be honest, but we won't really know. But anyway, I digress. If I did fail it, I have to pay for it again because work only pays you for like one go round. Otherwise, you could just keep failing and they'd just be burning money. But that's fine. I got the money for that. But yeah, other than this initial cost, it doesn't impact me much. It could impact me in a way where I can't do as many supermarket shifts because I have to study more. Like I can't do like a couple of weeknights at the supermarket because I have to go home and study after my full-time job. But yeah, I digress. Now, if you live in countries like Australia or the United States, the government basically pays for your tertiary study and then you pay the government back. It's like a student loan. I'm not sure how this works in every other country. I know Denmark pays for your university fees for free because the income tax in Denmark is so high. So it's like the taxpayers pay for the uni students. So this is a bit of a stitch up if you live in Denmark and you don't go to uni. But yeah, anyway, if you have to pay for your studies, just keep this in mind as you may need to cut back on subjects if your shifts are starting to get cut. Like if you're paying for your studies yourself and a recession's coming, your business is likely going to cut hours. and cut shifts, so you're not going to have as much money to fund that study. So just something to keep in mind. Now, side hustle, it's like the same as study. Like, it's not really going to be impacted too much from a recession. Like, I'm probably going to cut back on some spending on it. So, for example, I use Windows Movie Maker for these videos. Now, I could upgrade to some fancy schmancy software, which I do want to do eventually, but I'm going to have to hold off on that. Especially since I have land and a house to pay for, along with my general aesthetics like the dental, the Botox, the laser, the gym, and all that. And end of financial year is coming soon here in Australia, so we've got until the 28th or the 31st. Well, it's got to be the 31st. Why would it be the 28th? 31st of October to lodge our taxes. And because I claimed tax-free threshold from both jobs, that means I'm basically not paying as much tax as I should be from both of my jobs. So I elaborate on it in this video here if you give a shit, but if not, it doesn't really matter. All you need to know is I need to save up even more money to pay the tax office. I have to pay the ATO, which is like the Australian IRS. One thing I'll quickly mention too, the whole business and side hustle thing. If you're like a YouTube creator, a lot of your money will come from like ad revenue and you pimping some of your shit on your channel. In a recession, advertisers aren't going to spend as much on advertising because they need to cut costs themselves, so your ad revenue will decrease. And your viewers, like your fans and stuff, they will likely have their shifts cut too from work, so they're going to have less money to spend on your apparel too. So, there's no one really safe in this, there's no one's safe in this recession. So again, that's just something to keep in mind. I know some people resent the big YouTubers who just don't really do a whole lot and they make a lot of money. Like, I mean, they'll still probably do better than a lot of us in this recession anyway, but, it's not like they're not gonna get impacted. So, to wrap this up, I'm keeping my stable jobs and not taking any risks in terms of my career. I'm not eating out much at all, if at all. I'm having mostly whole foods for my diet, and the muffins that aren't whole foods are very cheap in terms of calories per dollar anyway. There are only a few sectors/stocks that will likely go up this year. At this point, housing is likely to continue decreasing in the United States. It's becoming stagnant here in Australia, but that may change based on the election that we've got coming up really soon. Some factors, such as study and side hustle, won't get impacted much, but all in all, I'm prepared for this recession to the best of my ability. That is all. Let me know how you're preparing.